There comes a moment in every man's life when the noise outside gets too loud and the silence within becomes too uncomfortable to ignore. You look around and realize you've been taught how to impress women, but never how to understand yourself. You've been handed scripts to follow, rules to obey, but no one ever handed you your own voice. And so you chase, you perform, you try to be enough. For her, for the world, for everyone. Except yourself. But tonight, we're going to stop that cycle. Right here, right now. This isn't another video telling you what to say to get the girl. This is a conversation about how to stop losing yourself in the process. Because the truth is, the man who captivates her is the one who no longer needs to. He's not chasing, he's becoming. He's not flashy, he's present. He's not begging to be seen, he's rooted in who he is. And ironically, that's what draws her in. In this video, we're going to go deep. We're peeling back the layers most men never touch. You'll learn why your presence matters more than your words. Why attention. Real attention is the rarest form of seduction, and why solitude isn't a punishment, but the birthplace of your power. We'll talk about the emotional wiring of women, not to manipulate, but to connect, to see, to hold, to feel. Because when you stop performing and start understanding, you become the kind of man she never forgets, not because of what you did, but because of how you made her feel safe to be herself. If you're tired of surface advice, if you're ready to step into a deeper masculine presence, if you're done pretending and ready to become, then this space is for you. And if this is your first time here, welcome. This channel isn't for everyone, but it might be for you. So do me and yourself a small favor. Click that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Like this video if it speaks to something real in you, and share it with a man who's been walking this path alone. Because what we're building here isn't a fan base, it's a brotherhood. Now settle in, take a breath. Let the world outside wait for a while, because the next few minutes might just change how you show up, not only for her, but for yourself. Let's begin. 1. What she really wants. Emotional resonance, not just physical touch. Let me tell you something most men never hear growing up. It's not your body that makes her stay. It's your presence. It's not your hands. It's your heart. It's not just what you do to her body. It's what you awaken inside her soul. You see, we've been conditioned to believe that women crave touch the way men do, visually, physically, externally. But that's a shallow understanding of a profoundly emotional creature. Yes, physical intimacy matters, but it's not the foundation. A woman doesn't get addicted to your skin. She gets addicted to how she feels in her own skin when she's around you. That's the part most men miss, because most men try to impress instead of connect. They perform, they fix. They offer solutions when she never asked for one. But what she's really asking, sometimes silently, is this. Can I trust you with the truth of who I am? With my chaos, my softness, my complexity. And when you can sit with her, not just her words, but her energy, without trying to mold it, or fix it, or solve it, you become something rare. You become a sanctuary, a safe place. And in this world, that's more seductive than anything you can do with your hands. Because emotional safety is the real seduction no one ever taught us. Not the fake comfort of flattery, not the performance of saying the right thing, but the kind of deep presence that tells her, you can be fully yourself here, and I won't run. You listen, not to respond, but to understand. You look at her, not to judge or correct, but to see. You speak not to control, but to honor. And when you do that, something changes. She relaxes. Her shoulders drop. Her eyes soften. She stops performing too. And in that stillness, in that shared silence, connection is born. You don't need to be the most handsome man in the room. You don't need six-pack abs or a silver tongue. What you need is awareness, presence, and a steady heart that doesn't flinch when she shows you her storm. So remember this: touch fades, looks change, but the way you make her feel in her own body, that's what lingers. That's what keeps her coming back. If you want to be unforgettable, don't just love her body. Learn to love the soul that lives inside it. 2. A Stoic truth masters don't chase, they attract. Most men today, they chase. They chase love. They chase attention. They chase status. Running after things they think will make them whole, only to realize they were never missing to begin with. I know that chase. I've lived it. And I've watched countless men burn themselves out, proving their worth to women who never truly saw them. But here's the quiet truth that most never learn. The man who is still centered, grounded deeply at home within himself, doesn't need to chase. He attracts, without force, without performance, without begging. You see, women and people in general are drawn to certainty. Not loud certainty, not arrogance, but the quiet, unwavering kind. The kind that says, I know who I am. I know what I bring. I don't need to audition. The average man is in a constant audition. He buys the right clothes, says the right lines, sends the right texts. He tries to be liked. And in doing so, he forgets how to be respected. He forgets that presence isn't built on noise. It's built on stillness. It's built on boundaries, integrity, discipline. Now don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with pursuing love. But the pursuit should never come at the cost of your peace. Because the moment you lose yourself to gain her, you've already lost both. A man who knows himself deeply doesn't need to convince anyone to stay. His life speaks for him. His actions echo louder than promises. His silence carries more power than 1,000 compliments. And here's the paradox that Stoicism teaches us well. When you stop chasing, you become magnetic. Because your energy shifts. You're no longer seeking permission to exist. You're simply existing fully. You walk into a room and you don't demand attention. But your calm, your grounded nature, it commands it. Without a word. This is the kind of man the world needs more of. Not another performer, not another pleaser, but a quiet leader, a lighthouse, not a lifeboat. He doesn't scream, "Look at me." He whispers, "I'm here." And that whisper, it travels farther than any shout. So if you're tired of chasing a feeling like you're always one step behind affection, approval, or love, try this. Sit with yourself. Turn the noise down. Ask, who am I without the chase? Because the man who is enough without the world, that's the man the world can't ignore. 3. Attention is the rarest currency. Let's slow down for a second. Because in a world that never stops, where every screen is blinking, every feed is updating, and every moment is fighting for our focus. Do you know what's truly rare? A man who is fully here, not scrolling, not performing, not planning what to say, next. Just present. Now you might think attention is easy. You're in the same room. You're hearing her talk. You're nodding when appropriate. But deep down, you know the difference. You know when your mind is half a mile away, solving problems, running loops, chasing ghosts. And she knows it too. Because a woman doesn't just want your presence. She wants to feel that you're with her, not just beside her, not just waiting for your turn to speak, but completely locked in. See, in today's age of short attention spans and endless swipes, attention has become a rare currency, more valuable than gifts, more powerful than promises. And when a woman feels your undivided attention, it hits different. It tells her, I see you. I'm not in a rush. You matter right now more than anything else. And that is a miracle. You don't need fancy words. You don't need to fix her problems. You don't need to understand everything she's feeling. But if you can hold space, just hold it. If you can listen without interrupting, if you can stay with her emotion without getting defensive, then you've already done more than 99% of men ever will. And do you want to know something funny? Desire doesn't grow where noise lives. It grows in quiet, in the space where she feels safe enough to unfold, to reveal, to trust. You want to seduce her? Don't just touch her body. Touch her attention-starved heart with your quiet, unwavering presence. Look into her eyes and stay there. Not like you're searching for something, but like you've already found it. When she's speaking, resist the urge to solve. Resist the temptation to say, here's what you should do. Because she's not a puzzle to solve, she's a soul to witness. And that, my friend, is where everything changes. She's not drawn to men who talk the loudest. She's drawn to men who listen the deepest, who aren't afraid of stillness, who aren't afraid of silence. Because silence, when held with presence, becomes sacred. Now I know it's not easy. We've been trained to hustle, to prove, to fix. But the truth is, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing. Just be there, fully, without distraction, without agenda. Because in a world that constantly pulls her attention away, a man who gives his is unforgettable. So if you're wondering how to build desire that lasts, it's not in your words, it's not in your wallet, it's in your willingness to be present when it matters most. And believe me, she'll remember. Not what you said, but how you made her feel in that quiet moment, when she knew without a doubt that she was the only woman in the world. 4. The subtle power of presence. You know, most men think they have to do something big to be loved. Buy the flowers, plan the perfect date, say the perfect thing at the perfect time. But truth is, the men who make the deepest impact, they don't always move fast or speak loud. They arrive, fully, quietly, sincerely. There's a subtle power in simply being there, with no agenda. No, let me impress her. No, let me earn her. Just being. And brother, that kind of presence is rare. She'll feel it before you even speak. Because women don't just hear your words, they feel your intention. They notice when your energy is clean, when you're not trying to get something, but offering something. Not demanding love, but inviting it. You don't need to be the loudest man in the room. You don't need to dominate the conversation or solve her every problem. You just need to hold still long enough for her to feel safe. And I don't mean passive, I mean grounded, rooted, the kind of stillness that says, I know who I am, and I'm not going anywhere. That's presence. You see, most men try to win her, but the wise man, He doesn't chase. He becomes the space she wants to return to. And here's the secret nobody teaches us. Presence is a portal. When you give her that steady, warm space, she unfolds. Her guard drops. Her walls soften. She breathes differently around you. Why? Because you're not pulling energy from her. You're offering stability, not stealing it. That kind of man, he doesn't just get her attention. He gets her trust. He becomes the calm in her storm, the pause in her chaos. And here's the real magic. When your presence is stronger than your words, when she feels seen, not just looked at, heard, not just listened to, she won't want to leave that energy. Not because you're trying to hold her, but because you've become a place she feels held. You don't need grand gestures. You don't need the right pickup lines. You don't even need to always say the right thing. You just need to show up, with your soul open, not your armor on. That's what she longs for. Not perfection, but presence. So the next time you're wondering what to do, don't do. Just be. Be real. Be grounded. Be fully there. Because in the end, presence speaks louder than charm. And a woman will forget what you gave her, but she will never forget how peaceful she felt in your presence. That's the subtle power. And that, my friend, is your greatest strength. 5. True addiction comes from awakening her mind. Let me tell you something most men never learn until it's too late. The real desire doesn't come from how you touch her body. It comes from how you awaken her mind. Because listen, anyone can compliment her looks. Anyone can make her laugh for a moment. But very few men, very few, ever make her think. And fewer still make her feel seen beneath the surface. You see physical attraction that fades. Even passion, if it's only skin deep, eventually cools. But when a man speaks to a woman's mind, when he stirs her thoughts, her imagination, her sense of wonder, that becomes unforgettable. She won't tell her friends. He had nice arms. She'll say, he made me feel alive in a way I didn't know I was missing. Brother, if you want to be remembered, not just desired, don't aim for her body. Aim for her story. Ask her the kind of questions no one asks. What makes her soul restless? What did she dream about as a little girl? What does she miss about herself that the world made her forget? And then listen. Not to fix, not to impress, but to understand. When you do that, something sacred happens. She begins to associate you with the parts of herself she rarely shows. And now, you're no longer just a man in her life. You become a chapter in her becoming. It's not the candlelit dinners or the sweet words that linger. It's how you made her feel safe enough to open up, to feel something real. Even in silence. That's the kind of intimacy most people never taste. And that's the kind of connection that lingers long after the touch is gone. Because true addiction isn't to the body. It's to the feeling of being understood. To the rare moment when someone mirrors your inner world back to you without judgment, without agenda. So if you want to be the man she can't forget, don't memorize pickup lines. Master presence, master depth, master curiosity. And remember this, the body may be touched by many, but the mind, the soul only opens for those who knock gently. And wait. Be that man, the one who doesn't chase her attention, but earns her trust. The one who doesn't just ignite desire, but awakens meaning. That's where the real power lives. That's the kind of love that doesn't fade. it echoes. 6. Most men only impress the eyes, not the soul. Let's be honest for a moment. In today's world, most men are busy polishing the outside. The car, the clothes, the smile, the bank account. It's the era of the showcase, everyone trying to impress. But here's a truth I've come to learn after 6 decades of watching relationships bloom and break. You can impress her eyes and still never touch her soul. Because status might turn her head, but only substance makes her stay. See, anyone can walk into a room and be noticed, but how many men walk into her life and actually make her feel seen? Not for her looks, not for her body, but for the way she overthinks before she speaks, for the way she guards her softness because the world has hardened her, for the dreams she buried, thinking no one would ever care to ask. That's the soul's domain, and most men never go there. They stop at the surface, trying to charm her with jokes, impress her with ambition, or distract her with things. But the wise man, he pays attention to what isn't said, to the pause in her voice, to the story behind her silence. He doesn't just hear her, he feels her. And that, my friend, is where the shift happens. That's when you stop being just another man she dated and start becoming the one she remembers. Because when you reflect back the parts of her she's hidden from the world, the parts even she's afraid to look at, you don't just build attraction, you build intimacy. And that is sacred ground. You see, the soul is shy. It doesn't open for noise. It opens for presence, for curiosity, for truth. When you sit with a woman in her truth, without judgment, without rushing to fix, you tell her without words, I see you, and you're safe with me. That kind of safety, that kind of emotional resonance, it doesn't wear off. It doesn't age. It stays. You may not have the flashiest car. You may not have the perfect six-pack or a high-rise view. But if you carry peace, if your presence feels like home, you'll reach a part of her no luxury ever could. So here's what I've learned, and what I want you to remember. If you lead with ego, you'll attract vanity. If you lead with performance, you'll attract expectations. But if you lead with essence, you'll attract the kind of connection that even time can't erase. Don't just impress her eyes. Move her soul. Be the man she doesn't just talk about, but thinks about late at night when the world is quiet and only the truth remains. Because in the end, charm fades, but soul impact, that becomes a memory she carries, long after your name stops being spoken out loud. That's not game. That's legacy. 7. A Stoic man builds his value in solitude. There's a kind of man you don't meet often. He doesn't chase attention. He doesn't compete to be noticed. He walks into a room and carries silence like a sword. Not because he's trying to prove anything, but because he's already found what most are still looking for. Solitude. Now I know what you might be thinking. Most people flinch at that word. They confuse it with loneliness. But the two are not the same. Loneliness is a hunger for connection. Solitude is a fullness that doesn't need to be fed. You see, most men live externally. They measure their worth by how many women they attract, how much money they make, or how many people applaud them. But a Stoic man, a man of inner discipline, knows better. He knows that true value isn't something you show, it's something you become. And becoming requires silence, stillness, space. I've always said, a man must go to the mountain before he returns to the village. What do I mean by that? He must go within. He must sit with himself, not just for hours, but sometimes for years, and learn what lives inside that restless heart of his. He must meet his insecurities. He must hear the lies he's told himself for decades. He must learn to be with his own company without distraction, without entertainment, without someone to validate his existence. Because here's the truth. If you can't stand to be alone with yourself, why should someone else want to stay with you? A Stoic man understands this. He doesn't fill the void with noise. He sharpens his thoughts in silence. He aligns his actions with his principles, even when no one is watching. And from that discipline, from that slow burning fire inside him, a quiet strength is born. A strength that doesn't need to shout, that doesn't crumble when ignored, that doesn't chase because it already stands full. And women, oh, they sense that. Not in a loud way. Not because you're alpha or posturing, but because your presence says, I'm not here to take something from you. I'm here because I've already found what I needed in me. That kind of man. He doesn't beg for attention. He commands it without saying a word. Now let me say this. Not every man who is alone is wise, but every wise man has walked the road of being alone. Solitude is the forge. It's where your character is melted, hammered, reshaped. It's where your values are tested. It's where you find out if your convictions are yours or just borrowed from the noise of the world. In solitude, you discover that peace isn't passive. It's a decision, a discipline, a war you win quietly every day by not abandoning yourself. And when a man learns to stand still, not because he's stuck, but because he's steady, he becomes magnetic. That's when she notices that you're not trying to impress her, that you're not addicted to her approval, that you don't need her to complete you, but that you see her clearly, deeply, honestly, and that my friend is irresistible. Because a woman at her core doesn't want a man who clings. She wants a man who stands, a man who doesn't crumble under emotion his or hers, a man who can hold space, not fill it with panic. And how does a man become that? Not by reading books, not by mimicking confidence, but by facing himself when no one else is around, by sitting through the nights when fear visits, by listening to the echoes of childhood wounds, by grieving what he lost, and forgiving himself anyway. You don't become grounded by chance. You become grounded by choice. And solitude gives you the soil for that growth. Look, I've spent years watching men lose themselves in relationships. They bend, they chase, they perform, and then they wonder why they feel invisible. But the Stoic man, he doesn't perform. He becomes. He becomes the kind of man who doesn't need love, which is exactly why he's able to give it purely. Because only when you are full on your own can your love be clean. Not needy, not grasping, not manipulative, but still whole, present. So if you're in a season of silence right now, if you feel like the world has gone quiet, and you're tempted to fill the void with noise, I'm here to tell you stay. Stay in the stillness. Don't rush to be seen. Learn to see yourself. Don't chase connection. Become so deeply connected to your own truth that others feel safe in your presence, because you feel safe in your skin. That's the kind of man the world needs more of. And that's the kind of man she won't want to look away from. Not because you asked for her attention, but because your presence made her feel something she didn't know she was missing. And that is power. Not the power of dominance, but the power of alignment, of presence, of peace. So here's the question I'll leave you with. Can you be alone with yourself and still feel full? Because if the answer is yes, then brother, you're not just ready to love, you're ready to lead. So here we are at the end of this conversation. But really, it's not an ending at all. It's a beginning, or perhaps a remembering of what it means to walk the path of a Stoic man in the modern world. We've talked about a lot over these past few moments together. And if you've been listening, not just hearing, but truly listening, then you know this wasn't a list of tips to impress women. This was a map to return to yourself. Let's revisit what we've uncovered. You began with the understanding that most men chase, but the master attracts. Not with noise, not with performance, but with stillness, with groundedness, with the quiet strength of someone who doesn't need to be chosen to feel worthy. Then you learned that women don't crave your touch nearly as much as your truth, that the deepest intimacy isn't physical, it's emotional, it's presence. It's making her feel seen in a way that makes her feel safe to be. You discovered that in a world drowning in distraction, attention has become the rarest currency, and the man who gives it fully, his eyes, his silence, his steady presence, becomes unforgettable. Because rarity creates value, and attention, pure, undivided, humble attention, is pure gold. You reflected on the subtle power of presence, not needing to do or fix or chase. Just be, and let that being radiate so clearly that she doesn't want to leave. Not because you trapped her, but because she feels free near you. You explored the idea that true addiction isn't to your body, but to how you awaken her mind, to how you make her feel alive again, to how you stir something inside her that maybe even she forgot was there. That kind of connection lingers, not in her skin, but in her soul. And you saw that most men impress the eyes, but not the soul. Charm is cheap, status fades. But when a woman says, "This man knows me," you've entered sacred territory. And finally, perhaps most importantly, you understood that a Stoic man builds his value in solitude. That your power isn't given to you by the world, it's forged in silence. In the spaces where no one claps, no one watches, and no one affirms. There, in the stillness, you become. And what do all of these truths have in common? They point you back, not to a technique, not to a performance, not even to a result, but to presence, to self-respect, to inner mastery. That's the foundation of real masculinity. That's what makes you magnetic without manipulation, rooted without rigidity, soft enough to feel strong enough to stand. You don't need to be louder. You need to be clearer. You don't need to chase validation. You need to deepen your values. Because here's the paradox, my friend. The moment you stop trying to impress her and start becoming you is the moment she'll see you clearly. And she'll stay, not because you asked her to, but because your presence reminds her of something rare, something real. Now, before you go, I want to thank you for spending this time here with me. If something in these words resonated, if something stirred in your chest, I invite you to stay on this journey with me. We're just getting started. This channel isn't about gimmicks or surface-level advice. It's about depth, about discipline, about healing the masculine soul. And if that's the kind of conversation you've been craving, you're in the right place. So don't forget, subscribe to the channel. If this is your first time here, click that like button if something hit home. Share this with a brother who might need to hear it. And most importantly, leave a comment below. Let's grow together, Let's wrestle with these ideas out loud. Let's build a quiet army of men who lead not by force, but by presence. Because in a world that's starving for truth, a grounded man is a revolution. See you in the next video.